Florida Atlantic University. Welcome to the College of Architecture, Urban and Public Affairs. Thank you all for coming. And thank you for making this great event happening. My name is Ephraim Ben Zadok. It's a great honor for me tonight to represent the John DeGrove Eminent Scholar Chair in Growth Management and Development. The purpose of the chair is to advance research and scholarly work in growth management and urban and regional development. As part of our program, one of our programs actually, it's the guest professor program. Under this program, we bring top urban and regional scholars who come here, interact with students and faculty for 3 days in effort to enhance research and scholarly activity in the college. Our two guests tonight are Professor Earl Starnes from the University of Florida and Professor Richard RuBino from Florida State University. They are the authors of these books, Lessons Learned, The History of Planning in Florida. Just to give you a brief on the history of planning in Florida. All right, I see my students are getting nervous, forget it. Let's go to the recent history of planning in Florida. Just 40 years, no big deal, a few minutes. Planning in Florida basically means growth management. GM stands for growth management, right? So tonight, GM stands for growth management. Here in Florida, we basically ran 3 models of GM. The first model was run in the 1970s by Under Governor RuBino and Earl, who also happened to be a distinguished professor in our college from 1990 to 95. Under this model, we legislated 4 acts in 1972 and 1 major growth management act in 1975. However, by the late 70s, it became clear that the model has a lot of problems. But Florida had its second chance in the 1980s. In the 1980s, under Governor Bob Brown, we first legislated the 1984 State and Regional Planning Act, and then the 1985 State Comprehensive Plan Act. And then again in 95, then came the jewel in the crown, the 95 Growth Management Act, as we call it, the GMA. Along with the GMA came the state rules, Florida Administrative Codes, known as 9J5, which I'm sure many of you in this room work with daily. And with these 2 documents, the 1985 GMA and 9J5, Florida became the leader of growth management in the United States throughout the 1980s and 1990s. But the model that led the nation for almost 2 decades got some problems. around somewhere in the 2000s. And we realized that even the best model needs some fix. So tonight we have the best tester and evaluators of all the GM models of Florida. In fact, all the models that we ran here in the 70s, in the 80s, 90s, and in the 2000s. We have the best testers, the best evaluators, Professor RuBino and Professor Starnes. They will tell you in this one book that costs you less than $32, and you can get it later. It's a four years of work. I mean, you know, what a bargain. You get it. They can tell you how to fix our growth management system, which is now developing also more towards smart growth and sustainable development. So basically, we got for you tonight the best GM team in the world. We have here Governor Bob Graham, the entrepreneur, the person who actually made this whole thing happen, the designer. And we got here the tester and the evaluators. And all we need left is we need a good driver for this GM car. Well, going back a little bit in history, in 1995, in the driver's seat of our GM car was no one else but John DeGrove. John DeGrove took 3 years leave of absence from FAU. Not to insult anybody here, it was probably one of the most productive leave of absence ever given at the university. And he led the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, for 3 years. He was in charge of the policy, in charge of the planning. And together with Governor Bob Graham, John DeGrove and the governor took our GM model to be the #1 in the nation, the exemplary model. From 95 to 99, we had another great driver, a driver which had a lot of vision. All these men were men of vision. Governor Graham, John DeGrove, and our tester evaluator, definitely men of great vision. And from 95 to 99, our driver with great vision is no one else but Jim Merrily, DCA Secretary, Department of Community Affairs, who actually got the department all the way to the late 90s. And since Jim Merrily is so used to be in the driver's seat, he's going to be your moderator this evening. And before that, just one last word before we start. Thank you very much for coming. This is to everybody, but especially for the next generation. You know, GM is all about education, and it's all about you and education. I see Dr. Miller class here, and I think he even wants them to stay to the end and make sure you give him the papers. And I think I see Dr. Prosperi class here. Yes, it's all about education. So please remember, GM, growth management. What's good for GM is good for Florida. Thank you.
Brian, I wasn't sure where you were going, but you got there. And before I proceed, you know, I don't want to go too much further without acknowledging the person out of the room. But if we were driving a GM car, he'd be the guy out there kicking the tires. He'd be making sure there was room in the back seat for his beloved dogs. He'd be asking Gail if she remembered to pack the car, and they'd be driving to North Carolina. So I don't think any of us would be here today if it weren't for the dedication and spirit and commitment that Dr. John DeGrove made both to this university and to the state. He can't be with us tonight, but you know, in his own way, that he is listening. He's writing notes on the yellow pad, and he'll be giving you some comments. He's with Gail. They're doing fine for two people in their point in life. But I did want to recognize them, and because it is the distinguished chair for John DeGrove that Ephraim is honored to sit in, and it's with his leadership and Dr. Yacht Voss at the school and the support of Dr. Dean Rosamond Carter from the College of Architecture and Public Affairs. Welcome, Dean. That this chair is one of its most important things that FAU presents to our community. I think has national attention focused on. So we have a great program. It starts a little late, but we'll make it work. Those of you who didn't get a book signed, we'll be back out there after the event. And Senator Graham also has a book that he's brought that he'd be glad to sign. I do want to acknowledge, in addition to Dean Carter, that we have a very special guest, someone who knows Senator Graham from his student days at Harvard, Professor Charles Hart from the Harvard Law School is with us. He is here with the support of Frank Schnittman, a senior research fellow at our center, Center for Urban Environmental Solutions, or as you all know, historically the Joint Center. I know there's probably other important people here. We welcome you all, but I did want to recognize Shannon Estevez, who's a member of the governing board of the South Florida Water Management District, who's here with us today. She is one of those unfortunate people who's responsible for all of the many things that the district has to manage, and we are glad she's with us. Please welcome her. So tonight we have kind of a three-part play. We're going to hear first from our authors, and they're going to review the book and their findings and lessons learned. Then we'll be joined by former Governor and former Senator Bob Graham, who will reflect back on his personal role as a Floridian in many capacities, and I'll go over those when I introduce him. And then I'll have a few questions for the three of them, and then we'll open it up to you for questions from your audience. So with that as our format, let me introduce very quickly Dr. Richard RuBino, as Ron said, Professor Emeritus from the Florida State University School of Urban Regional Planning. He was also Deputy Director for the Institute of State Programming at University of North Carolina, with the Governor's Planning Office in Vermont. He worked with the Florida House of Representatives, and he served as a consultant, and he's also worked in Australia at the university. So he has immense background, and he's also very lucky because he's married to my former executive assistant, Jan Dewey. Dr. Earl Starnes, Professor Emeritus from University of Florida. I don't know how they got a gator and a Seminole right. And the School in Florida, Florida Southern University, University of Florida, Florida State, the first director of planning when we had the Division of Administration back in the 70s, and then took the University of Florida where he directed the doctorate program. Both these gentlemen have dedicated a good part of their professional life to such an important profession, that is teaching the young planners who become involved in our planning profession. And we're honored to have them with us, and we're honored to hear them talk about